Welcome, everybody. We have the wonderful Kate Basset with us, who runs something called Run for Something. She will tell us all about it. We've had her as a guest before and just found her really informative and inspiring, so we invited her back. We've got a couple of other things happening today, and you will, of course, hear from Jim, who will sort of talk about the state of things and what we are thinking and what we are planning. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lisa Herrick. I founded 31st Street in 2017 with 30 people, and we are well over 2,200 and going strong, and doesn't look like we're going to stop anytime soon. So at the beginning of these meetings, I usually just say a few words. So I'll just say a few words today and then turn it over to Jim. And I always sort of wonder, what the heck am I going to say this time? Like, it's the same thing. Like, what's going to happen to our country? I don't know. Thank God for 31st Street. That's kind of what I say every month. But I thought I would just speak briefly about a very fiery debate that happened in my family 2 nights ago here on the porch. I'm here with my son's family and my husband, Drey, who's part of 31st Street, and my former husband, Dan, who's the father of my children. We're still friends, so he's vacationing with us. And Drey, my husband now, who's part of 31st Street, tends to be a real optimist. I wish he was here, but he's not. He's on a work Zoom at the moment. He tends to be an optimist. He tends to see things through rose-colored glasses, which is sometimes really annoying and sometimes reassuring. And my former husband, Dan, is on the other end of the continuum. He tends to see everything as negatively as possible. He's a real pessimist. He just thinks the world is falling, whether we all think the world is falling or not. And we had this very sort of fiery debate at the table after dinner with my son and my daughter-in-law about whether we still live in a democracy or whether we now live in a fascist state. And Dan was of the mind that all is lost. We are no longer a democracy, that there are many signs that tell us that. And Drey was of the mind that things are bad, things are terrifying, terrible things are happening. You know, we are vigilant and we are scared and we have to do something, but we're still a democracy. There are still signs of hope. There are still things happening that we rely on that are going to be protective. And he is of the belief that we are going to have elections in 2026 and we're going to get back the House and things are going to start turning around. Whether we get back the Senate or not, I don't know. That's a big question mark. Drey is actually working on that. But Dan was sort of the mind that, yeah, we're going to have elections, but they're not going to be free and fair. Like they're gone. And I sat sort of quietly between these two sort of very loud voices. And my son, who is a wonderful peacemaker, said, so can you guys just like pause and let mom like say something, which I appreciated. And, you know, the only thing I could think of saying was, you know, I just know because of our work in 31st Street that there are many places that are still fighting for democracy, but also are still a democracy. There are legislatures that are trying to gain Democrats. There are counties all over the country that are working to protect their elections. And there are hundreds of thousands of people like us who are not going to just sort of sit back as 2026 approaches and think, well, kind of hope it's fair. I kind of hope people vote. We'll just cross our fingers. No, there's a lot of people just like us that are incredibly active and incredibly dedicated. And the worse things get, the more active people are going to be. And so I was kind of in the middle. I mean, I'm very scared and I'm very worried. And I think that there are areas of the country that, you know, terrible things obviously are happening that are not democratic in the least, that are fascistic right now, especially if you are people of color, people who have immigrated here more recently. Like many people in this country would agree with Dan. It's not a democracy. This isn't a democracy. We don't know whether we're going to be grabbed off the street by somebody who's masked. And yet I know from our work that there is tons of work to be done, and there are tons of people doing the work. So I'm of the mind that the bottom line is, what's the alternative? Like, whether you call it this or you call it that, we have tons of work to do and we must do it. And that's it. There's really nothing else to be said. You can be pessimistic, you still got to do something, and you can be optimistic, you've still got to do something. And thank goodness we have guidance and ideas of what to do. So I'm grateful you're all here, and I'm really interested to hear what Kate has to say in a few minutes. And at this point, I'm turning it over to Jim.
Super. Oops, went too fast. I want to let people see my face first before I share. So there's a few new people here, so welcome. And I'm the political analyst and spend my life pretty much doing this, looking for strategic opportunities. And since I'm a retired epidemiologist, I like to show slides and to some extent talk from data. Now you can see this and hear me, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, so having gone through that process, I do like to show these the slide that shows that we do operate on some specific principles, and I will say that this presentation is brought to you by this principle, being strategic, and this principle, playing to win. And I'm going to show you some of the strategy that's going to help us be aggressive and playing to win. So starting out with where I think a little bit of where the political situation is, I just want to, you remember the comment, it's the economy something. And I will say it's still the economy. Oops. Smarty. I'd rather say smarty because I know you guys are smart people. So just a couple of slide. Trump, I mean, politically, Trump has done such an incredibly bad job. So many things, and I showed a list of about 8 ways that he did. But the worst is in terms of inflation, which is by far the most important issue. And it's the most important issue to the swing voters and the people that we lost in the last election. So in 2024. So you'll notice that he's way down in approval. And this is a moving average. It's getting worse all the time on what he's doing in terms of inflation and cost of living. And just one slide to show that it is, this only gets at one part of it, but it is among those voters, young voters, people of color, working class voters, and so forth. And this is among, Pew recently had a very nice national survey looking at Trump, among other things, Trump voters. And he's down 10% among people that voted for him. And that's especially down by a large number among young voters. So this is reason for hope. This is the optimist side for Lisa. So the other thing is that his economic, I'll call it unpopularity, couldn't think of another word, is very durable. It's not going to go away. Well, now why? You know, the tariff impact, which is mostly affecting these lower income voters, is really baked in, but it's only now starting to emerge more in prices. To some extent, the companies have tried to eat the tariffs, but they can only do so much, and you're starting to see it in the inflation data. But beyond that, there's impacts of the big ugly bill that are coming that are going to have an impact on people's economy and ability to spend. He's obsessed with this onshoring thing, wants everything to be made in the United States. That's only going to increase prices. And by the way, folks, steep electricity prices are coming, if they haven't already started coming to you, because of the data centers and other sort of things, not transmission lines not being built fast enough. And so that's going to affect people's electric bills, but also that'll be a big headwind for business that depends on electricity, especially small business and so forth. And whatever he's trying, his feeble attempts to try to reduce prices, like trying to get, lower interest rates or, maybe gasoline prices, get them down. The other thing is that by basically sabotaging renewable energy stuff, a lot of which can be used for power centers, that's also increasing the problem with data centers and electricity. So that's going to be a headwind, a tailwind for us, and he's not going to be able to get out of it, in my view, at all. So that allows us to be bold, right? So we can play to win. And where do we want to play to win? Hope people can see over here on the right side, but I've showed this map before, the Senate map. And, we currently have 47. We need 51, which has been a tall order. We've had some good news recently in North Carolina. I think Roy Cooper is very likely going to win. We now have Sherrod Brown in Ohio running. I give that maybe a 50-50 chance. Maybe that's optimistic. We have a chance in Texas now. But we have also felt for some time that in terms of the Senate to play to win, we want to, focus on these three states that'll get it. You want multiple shots on goal. And so we won't, and we have to defend Georgia and Michigan and Minnesota and so forth. So we really think that, or I particularly think that Iowa, Alaska, and to some extent Nebraska are where we need to be focusing for the Senate. And our primary focus for that has been to try to come up with a blue social media approach. And I can tell you, we're still working on that very hard. It hadn't come into place, and we're not going to present that to you until something really does come into place on that. And I actually work with Kate on that. She's been a great, Kate Basset, on this. I can tell you, if it does come into a place, we will come back to you on bended knee, asking you to be ambassadors and to donate for that, because I think that social media is the most important priority that we have. And I've been, of course, saying that for some time. Oops. Just to remind you that those three states also have huge, they are sort of Super Bowl states in their states with House races and governor's races and legislature, which we'll be talking about in a minute. All right, so now shifting, great, I see Catelin Drey is with us now, terrific. So we now have this thing, you've been watching this battling about gerrymandering, right? So just to kind of state the obvious, what do you think that that's really brought home to us, in addition to the need for Democrats to stand up? It's the legislature, smarty. That's what's really important that's the key ingredient. That's what we need in North Carolina and protect it in Pennsylvania and so forth. So in terms of electing blue legislatures, we do have some things going on, and we only reach out to you when we think we have something that's worthwhile doing. So we're still supporting the key legislature races, particularly Andrew Payton that we presented to you last time. And we could still use some help for those races. It's on our website. And then Catelin Drey, our terrific candidate for the special election in Iowa, who's going to be joining us in just a minute or two, a few minutes, could still use some support. We also will be looking for good opportunities for C3s and C4s, and I've got the sense of one in Alaska that we may be coming out with. But again, this is sort of the menu of the kind of things that we want to do to support infrastructure. But also adding to that is the idea of supporting down ballot races even further. So that's why we invited Kate Basset to come on to talk about Run for Something, their terrific work what they do. But we also most recently have selected 3 municipal elections in North Carolina that we are looking for people to support And we'll have that on the, I'll have a little bit more to say about that, I think, on the next slide. We've already talked about this, work in progress. These municipal elections are kind of what we call a special project. We kind of don't really do the full court press with having a fundraiser and so forth. But I am going to put the link in the chat if people that are particularly disposed toward North Carolina. We have 2 mayor races and 1 city council race in North Carolina that are specifically positioned within legislature districts. Again, bottom up, that we think that will help us in 2026. And also, of course, it's the bench, as I'm sure that Kate will be talking about. I will later on take the liberty of putting the donation link in the chat. But we also have if folks remember from a couple of months ago, Aubrey Weber, who I think is a terrific tactician and person working in Alaska. It looks like we have a C4 opportunity that's emerging. We'll get back to you on that. So again, we're very discerning. We don't just put a lot of stuff out for you. We just try to do a few things and only do it if we think it's worthwhile. So anyway, also if people are interested in North Carolina or Alaska, feel free to contact me or my lovely sister, Mary Pence. And okay, so now we're going to turn to Catelin. We've got a nice picture of her here. And you notice I've got this as appreciation for Catelin Drey. Now she's going to say she appreciates us because we donated money to her. Well, to me, that's the easy part. It's really our appreciation for her and people like her. Here's somebody, she's done Moms for Iowa, she created it and so forth. She's doing all this work on our behalf to save our democracy, young, energetic, just what we need. So if people feel like it, you can give a round of applause for Catelin before she talks to us, and I'll stop sharing. And okay, I'm clapping. I don't see other people. Okay, that's good. All right. So now people can, Catelin can take over the floor. Over.
Oh my goodness. Wow. 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 Can you all hear me okay? I'm coming to you from campaign headquarters, which is just my car. And I have my lovely husband here, who I have deemed my campaign intern. He's unpaid and but still deeply appreciated. And Jim, you were exactly right. I have just been positively blown away by the support from your group. To give you some perspective, the initial target for my individual campaign fundraising was $35,000. And thanks to you all and lots of support from other folks across the country, really, we are on track to probably raise about $150,000. And that has meant that we are flooding the zone, as they say, with our message, and we're able to do an additional mailer. We've got digital and over-the-top ads running, so that's like connected TV. We are all over on broadcast and radio, just really, really making sure that we can turn out as many good Democrats as we possibly can. Just this weekend, we've hit over 2,000 doors, and that's before I've looked at the updated total from today. So your support and your enthusiasm from all over has just been felt so, so deeply here in Iowa Senate District 1. And we didn't have time, or we didn't really think we'd have the money to do any polling. So we're going off of past history and other special elections in Iowa and vibes, which are all really good right now. So again, I'm just so incredibly grateful to you all and the other folks, both in Senate District 1 as well as across the country, that are really just desperate to do something right now to affect what's happening in state legislatures and in the country. So yeah, thank you. Truly, your support and enthusiasm has really been incredible. And not just for me, that's for all of our volunteers and my local county party with whom I've been really involved. They are they're so grateful as well. The election, thank you, Carol, for that question. The election is August 26th. So we're just under a week away, or just over a week away. I don't know what day it is or what time it is. but yeah, just over a week away, and early vote numbers right now are looking pretty good for us. We've got about 1,100 folks that have voted so far, and the mail numbers are looking promising. So yeah, and lots of new young enthusiastic voters that maybe hadn't voted before or are newly 18, which has been really, really exciting. So
Great. Okay, we'll get back to your work and
absolutely.
Thank you, Caitlin.
great
Thank
day.
you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so that takes us to our main speaker, which is Kate Basset, and she probably recalls that we don't really do much in the way of introductions. She can do her own introduction after she unmutes herself. And then, so go ahead, take it away, Kate.
Thanks, Jim. Oh, it's so nice to be with you all. I think this is the fourth time maybe I have presented at 31st Street, but the first time in my capacity at Run for Something. I spent the last 3.5 years at Courier, which is the largest, fastest growing progressive digital news organization in the country. 31st Street was a phenomenal supporter of our work there, particularly on our innovation around content organizing and building connections with local community and digital influencers, social media influencers. Really huge help. Also, I have to say, I know that, I got to catch a little bit of the new member, and many of you who are not new members already know this, but 31st Street really does do an incredible job of vetting the people that they bring on here. I think I talked to Jim and Julie maybe 14 times before I was ever allowed to speak to your community, and they really put us through the ringer at Courier. And I feel so grateful for that, because I think more than ever right now, in donor ecosystems, large and small, we have to recognize that efficiency is important, data informed work is important, and just doing things that make us all feel more hope and like our dollars and our time matters is more important than ever after 2024. So I'm just really grateful to be here. Very quick background. I spent 20 years as a civic journalist before 2016 happened. In my former life as a journalist, I did a lot of sitting on nonprofit and C4 boards in my personal capacity, but really transitioned professionally over to politics after 2016. I ran a congressional race here in Michigan in 2018. I worked for the state party. I worked for Biden's election in 2020, and then I came over to work at Courier, where I spent those 3.5 years really, really focused on the importance of building what you all call blue media, something that is still very, very near and dear to my heart, which is why I am fortunate to get to talk to Jim every single week still about that and scratch that itch for myself. But one of the things that I really started to worry about, as a strategist and storyteller at heart, was that we are talking a lot about tactics and tools, important infrastructure builds like blue media, but we weren't necessarily thinking about the foundational need to, for lack of a better term, end the gerontocracy, or begin to shift out of the gerontocracy that we find ourselves in, and also really think long and hard about how to rebuild the party and restore trust with voters. And to me, more than messaging, more than media, more than any sort of tactic or tool, organizing work we can do, that has to foundationally start with who we are electing, who we are putting up in office, who we are building a bench with. And that's really why I came to Run for Something. I'm a slideshow girl, so I'm gonna bust through this. Jim, I am watching my time. If you all have been at a 31st Street meeting before with me, you know I'm long-winded, so I'm gonna try really hard to stay on time here. Everybody can see this okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a broad stroke overview about Run for Something. I have been here for just 3 months, so bear with me. This is still new and really, really, really exciting. Okay. So who we are. So Run for Something was founded in 2017. If you are not familiar with the organization, the goal of Run for Something is to bring in the next generation of leaders, but not starting at the federal level. We focus on local, state legislature is as high up as we go. And since 2017, we've elected nearly 1,500 people to state and local office. So mayors, county commissions, county clerks, school boards, district attorneys, sheriffs, state legislatures, and more. We really are here to build long-term sustainable power everywhere. So what does that mean? We've had wins in 49 states. We are coming for Idaho in 2026. We now have a recruitment pipeline that is actually the largest in the country. It is more than 230,000 people strong. These are people that almost entirely organically raised their hands and said, I want to run for office. I don't know when, I don't know what, but I know I want to step up for my community. So they come to us. Since November 4th of last year, we have had over 60,000 people sign up. Important to note that 10,000 of those people came in a 2-week window after the New York City mayoral race. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And just kind of a little bit of a background, Run for Something's ethos really is to build a more representative democracy. So what that looks like is making sure that we don't just have the same old that tended to get us into a homogenous ideal of what we elect at the federal level. So in 2024, 55% of our candidates were BIPOC, 53% were women, 31% identified in the LGBTQ plus era. Okay, so why did I come to Run for Something? I will tell you, my work as a strategist at Courier was at a point where most people said I was crazy to leave because media is really having a moment. It's really important. We are included in all of the conversations. And also, I became so concerned about the fact that all of the national meetings that I was sitting in, all of the strategy sessions, all of the closed door events, we were talking about all of the things that you see on the screen, but we were not talking about the centerpiece there, that we don't have representative new leaders and that we don't have a bench that we're building at a fast enough pace to reach what we need to be. So just really quickly to understand, Run for Something is also built in a really interesting way to be sustainable. So we actually are a multi-entity organization. We have a fiscally sponsored C3 project. We have an action fund, so a C4. We have a PAC for our endorsed candidates, and we are actually newly launching a C Corp for our tech. And we are doing this all because we understand that, well, a majority of Democratic voters need elderly leaders to retire. We don't have a system in place to make that happen. And so having a multi-entity organization really does allow us to think about being sustainable for the long term and also good stewards of resources. As a C3, we're allowed to create a whole bunch of Creative Commons work that is available for anyone to use as we think about leadership development, as we think about information about different levels of office, how to find those things, how to learn how to file, all of the things that are actually barriers to entry, particularly for young people. We can create content that democratizes, and then we can share it. Run for Something Action Fund really is our research arm, it's our outreach arm, and it's our education arm to make sure that young people in particular feel like they can see themselves as future leaders. And then obviously our PAC recruits and trains and supports young people as they come in to run for office. We have built modernized campaign resources. We have a very, very strong online community and mentorship program. And then we are able to actually endorse candidates and help support their races all the way through with staff time, with money, and with mentorship resources. Okay, so it's important to note that the gerontocracy won't vanish overnight, and that is okay-ish. We're thrilled to see Roy Cooper run in North Carolina. We're glad to see Sherrod Brown because we think that's the best chance Ohio has. And we're happy to do the work down ballot to make sure that people are turning out to support them. And also, We have to build a bench that restores trust, and we have to rebuild the brand. And in order to do that, we have to start running people who have not been in office for 30, 40, or 50 years. And what does that look like for us? That looks like getting comfortable with primaries. I will tell you, I think that 31st Street is probably ahead of the curve on being comfortable with primaries, but a lot of people still are not. People want to continue to do the sort of heir apparent or wait your turn role of democratic politics, which is frankly part of what I think has gotten us into the mess that we are in. We have to be okay. And in fact, Run for Something will actually endorse multiple people in the same race if they go through our vetting process, if they look like they have skin in the game, because we believe in letting voters, especially at the local level, really lift up the candidate that speaks most authentically to them. What we saw, and I wanted to bring this up with Mamdani because there are a lot of people who have a lot of big feelings about the New York mayoral race, a lot of big feelings. What we saw was more than 10,000 people raise their hands to run. And that's not because necessarily of Mamdani's policies. It's not because he's a member of DSA. It's not because people are just hungry for, a socialist takeover of the country. It's because he was an authentic candidate that spoke to the community in a way that worked for New York City. He talked about the economy, Smarties, right? He talked about the economy in a way that works for New York City folks who just want to be able to afford their lives. And he did so in a way that said, we have the opportunity to dream bigger. I think this is a really important note. We have seen in the era of Trump, and Lisa talked about this too, it's really easy to go down the pessimist track. It's really easy to feel like all we are doing is fighting a battle against a fascist regime and democracy may be lost. And so how can we even think about what it means to have a bigger, better life? Well, one of the things that we do at Run for Something is really research, particularly what young people are thinking. Part of the reason why young people in general are moving right is because the right is telling them it's okay to dream smaller in a way that feels comfortable. Ladies, you don't have to, try and have it all. Just have a nice husband who will take care of you and have babies, and don't think about all this stuff because it's so stressful. We're on the Democratic side, we're like, everybody has to think about it because the world is falling apart. But P.S., ladies, you're going to work 3 jobs just to afford childcare. You're probably never going to be able to have a house. And, the environment is going to burn down around you. It's really easy to see where the overwhelm becomes unmanageable. We've lost the ability to tell the story of like hope and, Obama land change. We've lost the foresight to say, actually, we can make some of these things happen and we can make them happen at the local level. We understand based on the more than 10,000 people who signed up in 2 weeks when they came to our candidate intro calls. We were hearing stories again and again and again in the chat of like, I just believe that this one policy in my community could make a difference, and I think I can make it happen. I just believe that if we could get affordable childcare at the county commission level, if we could do some work there, it would make a huge impact for everyone that I know. I'm a veteran, and I know that, the healthcare system that's going to fail in my rural community, there are 3 things I learned from local progress that I could do differently. Like, these are tangible things that people want, and they want to be able to dream bigger. And then what Run for Something does is that we train for wins. We do not recruit for heirs apparent, which means we provide everyone that they need, what we believe to be the modernized campaign tools and tactics to go out and make a difference, but we don't select. We don't say, we think you're the right person for this role, and so we're going to put all of our ducks, behind you. And then, of course, I don't have to sell you on this. It makes my heart so happy to hear people use terms like reverse coattails without having to be told. But we truly believe that not only do down ballot races make an impact for the top of the ticket, but the bench can't be built anywhere but from the bottom up. That's how foundations are created. So just really quickly, in 2024, I show this slide because I think there's hope here. We endorsed 612 candidates in 2024 across 48 states. 443 of those folks went on to win their primaries, which was a 72% win rate. And then 50% of the November elections won. 50% in a time that was really, really tough for Democrats, and we saw historic wins across the board. We saw Alicia win in Michigan. She was the first female sheriff in that county. We saw Jessica win in California. She was the first Filipino ever to be elected in the California Assembly. And we saw Adam win in Kentucky, and he flipped a always red district blue. So we know that there are down ballot opportunities across the board, and we know that it's a lot easier to connect those dots for voters than it is at the national or sometimes even federal in general level. So a couple of things about why Run for Something is to me one of the most important sort of foundational organizations working across the candidate recruitment space. We know that folks who come from our Run for Something pipeline, so our endorsed candidates come from two different places. They come from within our pipeline. So folks who have just organically raised their hand, said they want to run, they work through our program, and eventually they apply for our endorsement. And then also through our non-pipeline. So sometimes, obviously, young people sometimes just throw their names in the ring, or they might go a little bit more of a traditional path, go to their county party, go to maybe a progressive group in their community, and they put their name on the ballot. And then we hear about great candidates. Two of your candidates, Chelsea and Eduardo, that 31st Street is supporting, Jim told me about. And I called our regional in North Carolina and said, do you know these people? And she said, I didn't, but I'm about to. They look great. This is really exciting. So we often will seek out younger candidates to make sure that they have the resources that they need. Our endorsement process is for people who are under 40, so 40 and under. We will train and support people in our online community at any age, because we don't want to be a barrier in general for building a more representative democracy. But we also understand that the 40 and under crowd are the people who are usually the least supported by the establishment and by just like other at-large PACs in general. And we know that even when they don't win, if we stay engaged with them, they will often come back, run, and then win. So our candidates, we did a deep dive with our really great data team. Most of our candidates stay in the Run for Something pipeline for 310 days, which is a long time. So from the minute they sign up with us to say, I'm interested in learning more about running for office, till the time they file paperwork, it typically takes about 310 days of our staff working with them, of them going through our training programs, connecting with mentors, connecting with other candidates before they decide they're going to go ahead and raise their hands and run. When they do, and in our endorsed candidate pipeline, we have found that actually candidates who come from within our space are 2 times as likely to win. And the longer future leaders are part of that pipeline, as you can see, the stronger their path to victory is. And we think that's in part because we provide so much training, support, and in-depth one-on-one work with candidates that by the time they get to the place that they filed, they know how important community service is. They know how to build a network. They understand social media. They understand field programs. They're really ready to hit the ground running. And then part of what we do is really training in community that's built for this moment. We really do a lot of feedback work with our pipeline and our candidates. One of the biggest things young people tell us is we can't go to a lot of traditional trainings because it might be all day on Saturday and we don't have childcare, or it might be a cohort that requires us to make a time commitment that we can't because of work. We need opportunities to train ourselves. We need asynchronous models. We need chances to get online and build community in that way. So we actually have, in response, developed through our C3, a civics program for a future candidates track that any organization can use. So those more traditional in-state pipelines that we work very closely with, they're actually able to use this if they have people that they meet that can't, come to their in-person trainings. And then we have a ready to run track that we work with our staff that really helps guide people through. And then we just launched, which I'm so excited about, in July, an online training and mentoring community. We haven't even announced it to our pipeline, and we have over 2,000 people who've signed up by word of mouth, which is really exciting. So a couple of these screenshots are from there. People who have completed their trainings, their asynchronous trainings, and decided to go ahead and file. People who are candidates now, who are working in districts that, are pretty darn red, but have the opportunity to work with mentors, to build their confidence, to understand what to do, how to develop volunteers, how to give a speech, all of these things. So we're really trying to modernize the way we reach people so that we can democratize, so there's not just one path anymore like there used to be. And in order to do that, we are big, big, big believers in national and in-state partners to create efficiency and scale. I mentioned at the top of this that the donor community in general, the funder community in general, has been in a bit of a vapor lock since the 2024 election. And a lot of organizations are struggling to meet their budgets. A lot of donor advisors are saying things like, show us the grid, show us how you build efficiency and scale, show us how this works with other organizations, because we have to be better stewards of our dollars. We are huge believers in this. So we actually have 199 active national partnerships. We have a person who is dedicated, and these are true partnerships. These are no money exchange. This is just work that is happening with other organizations for recruitment efforts, for training efforts, for messaging, for anyone who's like very specific to education, very specific to social media influence, very specific to understanding how to get labor endorsements for candidates. All of these things are working in concert together to make sure that the candidates are well trained, but also that the pipelines and the training programs are built to scale and interlock, not to overlap. So we're really trying to build efficiency. And then we have hundreds and hundreds of state and local organizations that we work with. All of our pipeline candidates also get fed into the organizations that are working to endorse candidates at the state and local level, so that we can make sure that we are building that sort of surround sound network for candidates. And then just very quickly to understand, we have candidates who meet the moment. I could do a whole presentation on this, but one of the things that I think is so important about having authentic, trusted messengers online is making sure that our leaders and our candidates are doing that. I don't know if anybody has seen Chuck Schumer's TikTok, but it's real cringe. It does not do us any favors. And we really need to be able to meet the moment with people who are digital natives and understand how to leverage these platforms and tools, and understand how to leverage the organizations like Courier that have been built to amplify these voices. And we're going to only do that in a generational shift, and we understand that. So we really want all of the candidates and all of the future leaders that come in to have the opportunity to be trained, because some are going to be supernaturals, some are going to never be really fantastic, but at least they will know how to use the tools, they will understand the mechanisms of the tools, and they will understand how important online spaces are for reaching their communities, even at a hyperlocal level. And then, of course, as you all know, the proof points are so much easier for building trust when they're hyperlocal, because we know that connecting the dots between policy, policymaker, and everyday impact happens so much faster. These are all Run for Something alums. Everyone from, the Pima County Recorder to Izzy Wade Smith-L, who is a wonderful Pennsylvania state rep. These are folks who have the lived experience of what it's like to, need affordable housing, to be a renter, to be struggling with healthcare at a young age, and also understand the moment that we're in when we are talking about fascism and free and fair elections, because they've grown up under the specter of Donald Trump. They understand how to fight back in a sort of brave and bold way, in a way that maybe our older leaders that still think we're sometimes going to get back to an era of John McCain. If you would have said that I would be saying that, 18 years ago, I would have never believed you. But do we all wish we could get there? Yes. Is it going to happen anymore? Probably not. So all of that to say, we're building a bench so that we can see these people rise. We currently have 5 Run for Something alum in Congress. And as we think about 2026, we're up to, I think, 22 people who are either running for Congress or statewide election across the board that were all found and started and trained as Run for Something folks. I put this really fun text that Amanda, who is the co-founder of Run for Something, got from James Talrico in Texas. I think this is a really great thing that he sent this while he was still out of Texas. And just, I woke up feeling thankful for you and Run for Something. There's no way a 28-year-old former teacher could have flipped a Trump district without your help. But this is the part that really speaks to me. The millennial legislators in Texas are the ones leading this fight. We need more younger fighters who will meet this moment in our state and country. I think that's really the crux of the work we're doing here. Run for Something. Yep, go ahead, Jim.
Kate, I think you better wind up.
Okay. I'm there, Jim. I'm there, I promise. So really quickly, Run for Something goes everywhere, but we do so strategically. I pointed this out in Ohio because we did have some friends on the Senate side asking where we had hyper-local places, particularly around Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, because they know Sherrod Brown needs help there. We have a lot of local candidates that will help do that, reverse coattails. We have over 100,000 people in the pipeline in those states. And then I'm just going to say this as we end, Jim, because I think it's really important for 31st Street folks to be thinking about too. We're all going to be thinking about 2026 in the very near future. We cannot lose sight of 2030 because the census is coming. Redistricting fights have been a reminder. We are going to be in a extremely important time for state legislatures and for local units of government that are pushing the census forward, because we could stand to lose, upwards of 12 seats. Republicans could gain 11. That's a pretty significant net loss. So as we think about building power now, we have to be thinking about it in a lens of we have to build a whole lot of power where it matters most for 2030. Okay.
Wow. Thank you, Kate. That was comprehensive and very inspiring. We had a few questions in the chat that you have actually already answered. But one question that I thought you could address is, how would you distinguish Run for Something from other organizations that are helping folks run, like She Should Run or Emerge America? And do you collaborate with them?
We sure do, and that's a great question. We work with She Should Run. We work with Emerge often. We work with Emily's List, all of the sort of big orgs that you think about when you think about candidate recruitment. Run for Something is right there with them. And we do that in a couple of different ways. One, not everybody who signs up immediately at Run for Something in our pipeline is under 40. So right away, we filter those folks to organizations like Emerge, like She Should Run, like Emily's List, based on what they have provided us information-wise about what they're interested in, their age, their demographics, where they are, and we make sure they're connected with the right people. We continue to offer those people our asynchronous training. We continue to invite them into our new online community because, we want to be open and work together, but all of those organizations like Emerge, like She Should Run, like Emily's List, they're actually also part of our online community. They can come in and talk about the work that they do. We want to make sure that the young people that we have are also getting cross-endorsed by some of these other organizations. And then when it comes to what our specific areas of focus are, we know particularly for the organizations that are working for like women candidates, oftentimes their policy work and their policy trainings are excellent, particularly around things like reproductive health care. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Then we can provide that information to our young folks, just like they can come to us for maybe the more like under 40 savvy things like social media training for candidates.
Great, great. Also, Kate, if you wouldn't mind putting in contact info in the chat and also letting us know, your website, things like that, so that people can keep track of what you're doing, that would be great. And one of our members asks if your slides will be available for us to look at. And Walter is asking, how soon will the meeting be posted online? It usually takes us about a few days to a week to edit it and get that happening. So just to answer that question.
Happy to share the doc too.
Great, great. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Okay, I think we are good and we are ready to move on to our next element of our program. But thanks again, Kate, for visiting and for all that great information.
Okay, let's not forget we have the after chat too. Okay, thanks.
Okay, I believe Michelle has something for us. So maybe we just turn right to Michelle.
Jim, I think you're going to post a slide for Michelle.
Right.
If she's
Thank
ready
you
for
very
it.
much. Thank you. Yes, that would be great, Jim. Hi, I'm Michelle Hainback, a longtime volunteer with 31st Street. And since 2017, like many of you, I've been knocking on doors and making phone calls to voters. And I still get stuck. You know, these conversations are difficult, especially when someone says, oh, I don't vote. And often these days we're focusing our phone calls and our door knocking on low propensity voters, voters who don't regularly vote. So how do you change habits, and how do you do it in a polite and empathetic way and not have the door shut in your face or them to hang up the phone? Earlier this summer, I had the opportunity to attend a couple of workshops taught by Elizabeth Chur, an author and activist, who has done just that, created trainings for people who want to talk politics with strangers. That's even the name of her book, The Joy of Talking Politics with Strangers. Anyway, I was so excited by her training that I wanted to bring it to a larger audience, especially to folks like ourselves who are focused on the Virginia state races. So I'm really pleased to announce that Elizabeth is going to be doing a one-time workshop, 75 minutes, 7 o'clock to 8:15 on Thursday, September 18th. We'll be sending up the Mobilize link to all of you later this week in the 31st Street newsletter. This presentation is being co-sponsored by a lot of the grassroots activist groups in this area that have volunteers in Virginia, and we can all learn together. When you come to the program, there will be a breakout session. So I hope you will stay through the breakout session because that's really the most beneficial part of the training. As I said, I just really hope you'll come because I learned so much and I want to have more people to go knock on doors and make phone calls with. Also, don't be intimidated if you haven't done it before. This is a great place to come and get motivated and learn what it means to be making these phone calls and talk to strangers. All righty. Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, so that winds up pretty much our formal program, but we always stay on for several minutes afterwards for anybody who wants to ask more questions or schmooze or comment or just keep us company for a little while. But this winds it up. Kate, is Kate still here? Kate, thank you so much for coming. We always love having you. And thank you for everything you're doing with Run for Something. It's really exciting. I'm really glad that you were with Courier, but now I'm really glad that Run for Something has you with them. So thanks for speaking to us. And thank you everybody who came, new and old. And now if you'd like to stay, feel free. You can just unmute, you can raise your hand. I see that Charlie has his hand up. So why don't we just start with Charlie?
Great meeting. I really appreciate the speakers. That was nice to hear from them directly. Just since I'm new to the group, I was wondering if there's any asks for the immediate future with regard to the Virginia elections.
So I'm not sure I understood the whole. Our approach to that was to support a slate of delegate elections. So we raised money, and we still are raising money for a slate now of 6 candidates that are, we call them, these are candidates in our sweet spot that we think really have a chance to win and where money will make a difference and so forth. Does that answer your question, Charlie?
I saw that, and I think that's great. I guess I had heard other people talk about doing door knocking and other canvassing type activities. Is any of that being?
We will be doing active door knocking every weekend, every Saturday, and sometimes Saturday and Sunday, in beginning after Labor Day.
After Labor Day.
Again, on very selected. We will have 2, actually longer distance, probably canvases also, but most of them will be in Northern Virginia. Sorry.
Great. Thank you.
Meg,
And that-
go ahead.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just say, I see Meg has her hand up, and then there's a question in the chat too.
I wanted to ask Kate if the Republicans have a similar operation or operations about recruiting younger candidates.
Oh, Meg, I love this question. They do, not as big as ours. However, I will say, and Jim has heard me say this probably 472 times, I think a lot about Charlie Kirk and his sphere of influence. So if you don't know Charlie Kirk, he is the guy that has created the majority of the influencers on the right that are young through a college ambassador program that he found and built online influence to. I think that he is considering the work he's doing as recruiting young people, building their social media presence, and then I think that they will eventually be running for office. So where I think we have a little bit of a competitive advantage is that there is no necessarily dedicated 40 and under organization on the right that is doing the kind of training and specific recruitment work that we are.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then, great. Ellen had a question. Do you know of groups working to register voters in Virginia, particularly young people? Does anybody know about that?
Jim, do you know anything about that?
Well, we have talked to a number of the delegate candidates and the House caucus specifically about outreach in a set where there are universities and colleges in Virginia. That includes in well, I can help me out, Steve. Where are these, like in James Madison University we talked about last time? Virginia VCU, is that what it is?
Yeah.
And William and Mary Washington, and so forth. With the situation that there is early voting and essentially you can register in person on the day of the election. That's actually working pretty well. So I don't know, Ellen, if that really answers your question, but that it's actually pretty active outreach. She's sort of nodding her head, so not really. Okay.
All right. Let's see, what other questions are there? Put up your hand if you have one. Oh, is 31st Street doing anything on the special election for Federal House District 11 to replace Connolly, who died? I don't know anything about that. Jim, do you?
So David, that district is so blue that no, we're not, we're really not focusing on that. And in early Virginia wants to say something. But that you know, we are winning special elections hand over fist, and that district is so blue. So no, we're not focusing on it.
Yeah.
Virginia, do you want to say something?
Virginia, you're on mute. Can you unmute?
I'm trying to get off it. There we go. Sorry. Two things on that very point. There was a primary election, and the loser in that election is wholeheartedly behind the candidate now, whose name I forget. But I agree with Jim. It's probably bright blue, and we don't have to worry too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
The other, what I really wanted to talk about is I got an article last week, and I don't know where it's from, but that talks about something called the mothership vortex.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and I wonder if there's anything that we should be doing in terms about giving our contributions through 31st Street. Are we in any way involved in that, or any of our?
Well, I mean, these are the sort of unscrupulous fundraising techniques which were exposed, and we don't do that, and we don't even direct people to that, and we don't even direct people to those candidates for the most part. So it really, I mean, I will say that Act Blue has put out some Still a lot of those donations went through Act Blue, apparently. And Act Blue is trying to kind of reform what these folks are doing, and has actually asked for like whistleblowing, I'll call it that, when people are getting unscrupulous kinds of things. The Grassroots Consortium
Yeah,
actually planning to do a grassroots connector piece on that, so that if people get a lot of bad stuff, they can let Act Blue know about it.
right. Okay. Yeah, the article was in great detail. I think it was Vox or ProPublica did a really good research on. And the thing that got me was so much of the donation that you give to these, in thinking you're giving it to the candidate or the NGO, is actually getting skimmed off by this mothership vortex, an enormous amount. So I don't know whether.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad mark for our movement.
Right.
And we're trying, we to some extent are trying to clean it up.
Right. Well,
I see Kate nodding her head, so that's good.
yeah.
So Jim, just to be clear, we do not do anything with Mothership, and we have not in the past.
Right. I didn't expect that.
Is that correct, Jim?
Well, yeah. Well,
Yeah, we don't use them. We don't donate.
or any of these related organizations, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the membership in case you didn't know about it, but I'm glad.
We might put something in the newsletter just to clarify.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Nice to see many people sticking around.
Jan has her hand up. Go ahead, Jan.
So I was just going to remind people there is a link in the chat, and I'll ask Jim to put it back in again, to donate to the 3 municipal races in North Carolina. And these are, this was not my idea, so I can say it's a brilliant idea to be in on the citywide city council and mayor elections in these districts that in 2026 will be swing state legislative districts that we can pick up. And so it's part of a strategy of getting the majority of the North Carolina legislature back to Democratic before the 2030 census, and the courts as well. So this is key, and we're only trying to raise $15,000. That's modest for us, but please contribute.
The link's been put back in the chat.
I would
Thank
just
you.
say, just for you all too, like the beauty of supporting municipal level races is that it really is like a great shot of hope, and it doesn't cost very much money for it to be a great shot of hope. A little bit can go a long, long way in these races, and then the impact that you're making by putting good people in office to connect the dots for their community before, a state legislative race is brilliant. There's a reason why people said in 2024 that Kamala didn't tackle housing, even though she talked about housing a whole lot. I can tell you, because I was working at Courier and we covered it incessantly. It wasn't that she didn't talk about it. It was that people know at the federal level that the president actually isn't going to fix housing in their community. But you can bet the people who handle zoning, county commissions, mayors, city councils, they actually can make an impact. So, remembering that as you're thinking about building the strategy up is essential, particularly because of where we are with voter trust as a party.
I just donated, and it takes a minute and a half, not even. All right, anybody else? Lovely to see you on Sunday afternoon. So we will meet again in September, and you'll get a newsletter in about a week. It'll have the link to the recording of this meeting and all sorts of other information. And thanks again to you, Kate, for joining us.